Amy?
Hi, Jason. How are you?
I am doing great today. How about yourself?
Oh, pretty good. Uh,
Good.
we appreciate you coming on the podcast today.
My pleasure.
Well, to get started here, this is the Align podcast where innovation and strategy meet. But we're here today to discuss basically the roofing industry. Do you have any questions before we get started?
Nope. Ready to go.
All right, let's rock and roll. Okay, we can start with us telling you telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do. You're out of Florida, correct?
That is correct. Yes. Yeah, I'm a 29-year vet in the industry.
Nice.
Started as a laborer initially, moved up to foreman, right up the chain. Have been estimating and PMing for at least 15 years, probably closer to 20 now.
Right?
Um, so yeah, my first 15 or so years were union up north, which was a very strong area. Roofers
Yeah.
were great. They were all trained the same. And that was kind of one of the first things I noticed down here in Florida since I've been down here the last 12 years is that same kind of level of training is not the same as it was around the union areas per se.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I've been working as the senior PM and estimator for the last 6, 7 years down here with JT Roofing. We go statewide, which I love, and yeah, it's very unusual this year down here in Florida. It's been like very nice, not humid like it has been.
Really?
Temperatures on hitting 100 and some, and we haven't even had a scare of a hurricane this year, which is unheard of.
Yeah, I know. I grew up in Texas, so I'm very aware of the hurricane season. I was a roofer. I started out personally. I roofed for 22 years. I was the vice president of Antex Roofing down in Houston, Texas, and I started there when I was 17 as part of a co-op out of high school working, and I worked my way up there and ended up partnering with Mike as I grew into the company. But yeah, it was we always had the hurricane season brought would always bring all kinds of different things in, and there in Houston, just the amount of rain we would get caused a lot of problems with roofs, especially back in the day. I remember when I started with them, I started when they were the old asphalt roofs, so it was a lot
Yep.
different on like commercial buildings and whatnot. So do you do commercial or do you do residential down there?
Our company does both. I pretty much run the commercial division of the company. And again, we go statewide. So yeah, I'm very active in the office and I'm also still out there about a third of the time.
Yeah. So what exactly do y'all focus in on? What kind of construction roofs do you do? Are y'all doing flat roofs? Are you doing is it all TPO? What exactly are you working on the most?
I'd say the most is TPO. We have very little modified bitumen.
Yeah.
We have very little hot mop roofs. Not because we can't do them, just because simply they're not being spec'd anymore, or not as much. I mean,
No.
government will not seemingly never get away from it. I pray that day will happen when the embassies and everyone else says, you know what, let's get on board with technology and use single ply roofs.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, mainly it's TPO that we do and focus on and then try to push when clients say, yeah, I heard of this about modified bitumen. Yeah, I understand it's a good roof and can last if it's put on correctly,
Right.
but I'm just a single ply kind of guy. I really believe in it.
Well, yeah, and we made the conversion to TPO because it was being requested so much, but it is hard to beat those 4 ply, 3 ply modified roofs. I believe Mike still puts a bunch on schools because of the traffic on the roofs on schools can tear up TPO pretty good. So a lot of times they still go with the cap sheet type of system, but yeah, it is a huge benefit, I think, to the roofing industry with TPO because it's so much more efficient. It's a lot safer. You can put it on faster. That's a huge plus with it. But with the fact that the application is so much faster, it led to a lot more roofers popping up around the country as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't have to have a truck, an asphalt truck, and all the big crews that you had to have before. Now you can do it. You get a 6-man crew out there, and you can knock out a pretty big building.
Absolutely. Back to your point too, Amy, about the safety factor.
Yeah.
Can't overestimate that enough.
No.
Roofing is so much safer now from as opposed to running kettles or
Oh
torches
yeah.
or you name it, night and day difference.
Yeah, big fire hazard, burn hazard there, that always existed. Um, so I know with Miami-Dade, y'all's red tape is a lot harder and a lot more difficult. Just your fastening patterns alone with TPO are a lot more significant than they are when you're off the coast and out of Florida. Um,
And, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, with code changes in 2020, 2024. Now
yep.
we've had zone one prime, obviously, and faster density, I noticeably has gone up. And for good
Right.
reason. I'm all for that as long as hurricanes don't rip up our roofs.
Yeah, exactly. That's the trick, right? As long as they stay pretty under that Cat 3, I think you're good. It's when you start getting over that Cat 3 that you really have the big problems with the roofs. But luckily they haven't had one of those in a while, so that hit directly of any significance, or they're not big enough to cause huge impacts, but we'll keep our fingers crossed as far as that goes.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. It seems like the Florida Panhandle, the Fort Myers area on the opposite side of the state have just been getting hammered over the last, call it, decade, right?
Yep.
Miami is overdue by like 20 years for receiving a hurricane.
Yeah.
What, what, what's shocking to me is with the high velocity hurricane zone, which encompasses all the Keys, Miami-Dade, and Broward, right above that, is pretty much the HVHZ areas in Florida. And with these Cat 5s hitting the Panhandle,
Yep.
threatening Tampa last year, I'm a little surprised they have not changed the code statewide to start making those locales even more bulletproof.
I didn't realize that they hadn't. I've been out of the industry directly. I still consult with Mike, doing what I do with AI and technology, like tech stacks and stuff. But what I usually do, a couple years ago, I thought they were updating those systems in the Panhandle.
I thought they were too, but we can still use non-HVAC Florida product approvals all day long, which again to me is shocking, just given the magnitudes of upwards of
Yeah,
Cat 5 and Cat 5s hitting.
right. So what I wanted to ask you, so what suppliers do you guys utilize the most? Do you have a particular one that y'all are kind of, uh, using a lot, or do you prefer to kind of keep them on their toes and be more competitive, trying to bounce around a little bit?
Actually, no. I use 4 to 5 predominant suppliers. I try to feed most of them kind of equally.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to use ABC Supply down here the most just because they have the most branches, right? And,
Right.
and since we have so many projects scattered throughout the state,
Yeah.
usually they're more handy to have and use.
Okay. Yeah, I know that a lot of people use ABC, and ABC's got such a good, middleman there that makes things a lot easier. But I think it's good to keep them working hard for your business, because otherwise you get kind of jacked around with pricing. So they've got to be willing to be a little bit flexible. Um,
Sure.
so what's the market been like there in Florida right now? Like what's going on, and what is your company's like average revenue? What are y'all usually producing a year on, just as an approximation?
Yeah, we might hit 20 million this year.
That's great.
We do have a strong residential department, very strong commercial department. What I'm hearing and seeing from a lot of people, including other companies, is that everyone is just kind of pausing and waiting, right?
Yeah.
Um, Residential has definitely slowed down. Usually we'll see that during hurricane season anyway, just kind of those people hoping to get a hurricane and obviously use insurance then. So
Right.
this is not that abnormal. But also the commercial sector I'm hearing is slowing down. We're still seeing a ton of gas stations, a ton of storage facilities, which
Yeah.
kind of be popping up all over the place.
Yeah.
Us as a company, we're just fine.
Yeah. That's good. Do y'all know Elite Roofing out there?
I have not heard of them.
They do only residential, but Bree runs that out there, and she's fantastic. She's very young and knows what she's doing. But they do a really good job too. I think they're on the maybe what part of Florida are you in?
We're in Stewart on the
Stewart.
southeast coast.
Yeah. I think she's on the north. Yeah, the north side. The northwest side. But they're staying pretty busy, residential wise. That's all they do, but they're staying pretty busy. So I'm seeing the market in Florida is pretty strong with all things considered. Some places in the economy and across the country aren't moving as fast, but generally speaking, what do you think some of your y'all's challenges are?
That's a good question, Amy. We've grown pretty well over the last 5 years. We've not done that in a bubble or as a bubble.
Yeah,
We've grown steadily. We have all repeat clients, it seems like.
yeah,
Great relationships there. That's really helped to, solidify us as a company at least.
right,
Um, as far as challenges, there's not a single one that comes to mind. Um, obviously, the workforce as it needs to grow, um, that's going to be a challenge for I think everyone in
right,
construction and beyond. I mean, we all know what's going on with ice and where that
right.
may or may not go, what the impact is going to be there,
Yeah,
and then trying to just replace that generation, if you will, with new guys that want to do this. And you're not seeing the average person coming out of high school or whatever and saying, I want to go be a roofer.
yeah,
I want to do this. I want to do that.
yeah,
To that point, though, I think more kind of waking up to that understanding that AI is going to be playing a huge role in a lot of professions. And therefore, if they want to have a steady, solid job, it is not a bad idea in the least to go into the trades.
yeah. And I'm seeing that across a lot of fields. A lot of people are going to trade schools a lot more and establishing that skill set, which versus in a college and whatnot, because AI is taking over a lot of stuff. But what are some of y'all's, being the fact that on the commercial side and the residential side, for most part, the competitive market out there, your margins, how are y'all doing with that and competitors in general? You seen any issues there?
Not really. I kind of know where I need to be for new construction projects.
Yeah.
I don't even ask feedback from my GCs. I just kind of know, right? So
Right.
if I'm stupid low or something like that, they'll tell me, but otherwise we're right there all the time.
Hmm.
Um, the newer companies, they have the problem because if they're not experienced enough or don't have enough experienced people with them as they start up, estimating can be a gruesome, gruesome game and puts you out of
Yes.
business like that.
Yes. I moved up to the estimating department after I had graduated high school. And it takes a lot to learn. And if you have somebody who's familiar with blueprints, but these architects and engineers do not know how to put details on blueprints a lot, and they don't get it right, and it can throw a lot of guys off, a lot of people off.
I agree 100% with that, Amy.
Yeah.
Um, we're we've seen that trend too, I think, in the industry over the last, call it 20 years, where 25, 30 years ago, we were seeing great plans, great
Oh yeah.
details, everything called out. And progressively, it just has gone downhill. It's very rare to see a complete set of plans that's really, really good anymore.
No, because it leaves you guessing, and you become the engineer, right? And the architect of the plans. And when you have to present the addendums and the corrections to the general contractor, and it's because a lot of these people drawing up these plans, they just have never been out on a roof. They really don't see the application. They're not there for the full application process. And the way they design some of the gravel guards, for example, or some of your scuppers and headers, and the way that the drainage system on the roof works, they don't even sometimes understand it.
The absolute fact. A lot of times in doing submittals, if I know something is definitely kind of wrong or is wrong, sometimes I'll take that time to actually CAD up a correct detail just so they understand that, hey, here's how we're actually going to be installing it,
Yeah,
period.
yeah, and you have to clarify that too in your proposals. And a lot of these young guys trying to get into the business, and gals for that matter, trying to estimate a job, they don't realize they have to, when you propose it to them, you have to specify all those things into your to what you submit in your estimating, or you'll get caught flat-footed and end up eating a lot of cash there, and decreasing your margins because it wasn't explained to the GC or the architect or whatever, because they didn't know what they were doing to begin with. So
Yeah,
I see that a lot.
I want to jump back for a second, Amy, if I may, just talk
Yeah,
about AI a little bit.
yeah,
I don't personally use it yet. I know I will be at some point for a few things, right? Um, but just how fast that has grown in the last 3 years, right? And we know
right.
it's just going to be exponential as it goes forward. And I'm excited for it. I really am, to see what kind of impacts it will have to the world. I think most will be positive. And I think about my job, right? As far as like being an estimator and
Right.
going out there looking at existing roofs and this and that. I'm thinking, how is AI ever going to replace me? I know it is going to happen. I know it's shallow thinking by not, but I think it's gonna be a long time before, jobs are really,
Right.
really.
Well, I'll be honest with you. So, I do this podcast to bring awareness with AI and the way that it's hitting the contracting industry. And you have some companies implementing things that I do, and you have some companies that don't. And the companies that don't, and they keep on pushing it back, I feel like are gonna get caught, left behind, and it's gonna end up costing them a lot more money later than it would now to try and connect all those pieces together that we do. But I don't think it's going to replace your job. AI was actually developed in the way software and AI work together. It was developed to help us. It wasn't developed to replace us. So there still needs to be that human oversight. You still have to have that HI working with the AI, that human intelligence working with the artificial intelligence, because it is not anywhere near, and I don't think it's going to be anywhere near ready for that for a long time. So you're still going to need the knowledge that you have, because AI doesn't have the knowledge you have. And it can't fix problems in real time when a problem on a job site happens. Or you have something that wasn't built right. So there's always, you have to go in, your guys have got to fix this issue. You've got to get with the carpenter, you got to get with these people, and these other subs on the project sometimes to go in and kind of collaborate together to fix a problem. So there's always going to be a need in trades for that human oversight for guys like you. So no, I don't think your job's going. However, I do know of ways to make your job a lot easier, and make it was designed, I actually truly believe this. I believe it's designed to allow us more freedom, to give us our time back. And that's what I see most is now what you decide to do with that time is up to you. A lot of business owners are taking that time and they are being more productive. So they're increasing their productivity and they're growing their businesses. I see that a lot of times. And then I see somebody who's been, working the business for 20 years and all of a sudden he's got 30, 40 more hours a week that he has available. So he's deciding to kind of relax and enjoy that. And then you have people like Bree the other day. She's got a tech stack that's crazy good and she really knows her stuff. And the only problem she has is like on QuickBooks, just as an example, the timesheets don't. This is a perfect example of what I do. So like the QuickBooks timesheets, they don't connect in with her CRM. So her CRM platform and QuickBooks Time do not communicate back and forth. So what I do is I go in and I build an API integration system that connects the two dots together and lets them streamline and talk back and forth to each other. So she's not doing double or triple inputs. So she does it once here and it's done. And the system self-regulates itself. So that's what AI does. That's how AI makes your life better. So I'll save her for her, because she's already got that CRM, already has that tech stack going so well. With this, I think I'm saving her about 4 or 5 more hours a week. So that's a lot. That adds up to
Yeah.
a lot over 6 months or over a year, right? That you can get back in your life, or you can do to start another project, or increase your productivity with sales, or whatever you want to focus on. So it really helps you in that way. And we go in and do y'all currently use a CRM?
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Yeah,
what are y'all
we
using?
job Nimbus internally.
Yeah, Job Nimbus is good. It's excellent for roofers. I mean, it is probably top notch for roofers. But like, do y'all have what softwares do y'all have in place right now besides Job
Uh,
Nimbus?
but besides that, QuickBooks is our pretty much go-to for
Right.
billing. Yeah, talking about job Nimbus and CRMs in general. I personally don't use it on the commercial side of things,
Uh-huh.
just because there's too many changes and too many things going left, right, center,
Right.
changing. You know what I mean? Things don't follow that normal flow as they do in residential.
Right.
But yeah, internally we definitely do use that on the residential side.
Okay. So like for instance, your commercial side, how much of the 20 million revenue do y'all do in commercial? How much
Oh,
would you say?
about 12.
Okay. So for instance, if we added a high level CRM, because the way what AI has done of late is we have high level CRMs where they're called go high level or white label CRMs, where we go in and we kind of tailor it specifically for just what you need it to do. So it could be a huge function or it could be a minute function. It just depends on whatever you need. So we kind of dive into your company and figure out the operational functions and how you want it to function and where your problems are, your pain points are, and then we create these solutions for it. But again, what I do is I can connect things that, integrate with your apps. So do you guys use apps out there in the field?
Get just company cam for picture purposes and historical reasons,
Right,
obviously.
right. So you can connect Company Cam up to your CRMs too, and where they're constantly talking, right? You can also connect it up to your estimating platforms. I don't know if y'all do it all by hand or if you have an actual platform that you utilize.
For estimating.
Yep.
No, I use On Center for all the digital plan takeoffs.
Okay.
And since we've had such a struggle with prices being number one guaranteed and number two stable, they have stabilized compared to the COVID area. Obviously,
Right.
I always plug in spreadsheets using Excel personally.
Yeah. Well, see, like Google Sheets is another example. So we can tie Google Sheets into your estimator where it analyzes everything for you in real time, where you don't have to do all of that. It actually transfers and inputs everything where you can see things at kind of an eagle eye view. So it makes it really nice. So there's a million different ways that you can use AI and new technologies. But that is what I do. But I do this podcast too because I like to bring awareness to it because it is it has changed so much that the dynamic has changed so much over the last 5 years with roofing. So it changed significantly. I think around that 2000 timeframe, right? .com timeframe. A lot of things changed, and then it changed again in like 2010, 2012, and I think now. I think we're going to see some of the biggest changes we've ever seen in the contracting industry, roofing industry, period, just because of what AI is doing and the functionality of it from an operational standpoint. It is super great. So that's why I say you still need you. Your job is still going to be in need, but the way you do it and the way that you can function at a very high level with it and get things done at such a faster pace, really, that's where it really helps. So it just helps in that way. And we could always have another conversation at another time and dive into that if you like. But there is a lot of ways that it helps and makes your company more efficient and your job just more organized and more productive. And that's really what AI was designed to do.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like I said, I'm really excited. Personally, I've not done any research, at least on my end, to see how it can help me in the near
Yeah.
term. I just know it's going to be
I'd love to
something.
sit down with you on another call, and we can talk about it and dive into some of those things and see what if it's something that you think might be a good fit. But I do that all the time, and sometimes I find people who aren't ready to make that move yet. They're just, you have your blue collar roofing guys that have been around, they've done it for 30 years and they're just like, nope, I have everything like I want it, and they don't want to move. But the reality is a lot of them are starting to come around, and they're figuring out the production that you get is so much better. So I like doing it for that reason. And I know I was in roofing for so long. Um, and one of the things I did with Mike's company is I made it run more efficient. And I've always kind of been in that favor of that. And when AI and everything really started taking off, I kind of dove into that and just enjoyed helping making companies better all the way around. So I started consulting and doing those type of things. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I find it fascinating, but the fact that what it can do for people's just your work stress level alone comes down significantly when you utilize what's available. And I think some people don't realize how much that affects us. And like I said, I think that's originally why what the people who created it were had in mind was originally they wanted it to be completely free to everybody, right? Which, isn't going to happen, but that's what the idea was. Um, but it was to make life easier for us, allow us more freedom, less stress, not replace us, but just make life better. And um, that's a real big thing for a lot of people. And I have an HVAC. My best friend runs a huge HVAC company in Houston. We grew up together, and she was 6 months ago, she was running like a chicken with her head cut off because she was doing everything. She was doing the manual inputs with the guys, the QuickBooks. I mean, she had like 8 different systems she was having to go in and out of all day, every day. And I dove into her systems. Finally, she let me in because she just grabs tight. And I was like, Kelly, I cannot stand seeing you like this anymore. And I have saved her about 5 hours a day.
Wow.
And she was in Cabo last week, and she hasn't. Her kids are both in college now. Her daughter's fixing to get married, and she's actually able to enjoy her time instead of work to this. So it just depends on what you need, how you want it to function for you. Because I have people who want to work and don't care about their time. I have people that do. But the point of AI is it's supposed to help you function better and be more organized. And what that does for us as humans is it allows us to be a lot less stressed. And that makes life a lot easier for us. So,
Amen. I like it.
yeah, for sure. Um, so wrapping up the podcast and everything today, if you had anything to say to our viewers that tune in and do take a look at this, what would you say to them if they're wanting to get into the roofing industry? What advice do you want to give them? What recommendations would you allocate out to them?
I'd say dedicate yourself to it and to learning, and especially being open to learning. Before I started roofing, like I got hired on originally, right? I was right there in the spec books. That's what helped me a lot coming up is just that extra willingness to truly learn. And I was lucky in my career. I had great leaders and people around
That
me that
helps.
took the time to teach me as well.
Yeah.
That's another key recommendation. If you're getting into it, surround yourself with talent and good people because that will make a huge difference in how you grow.
Absolutely, it really does. I had a great mentor with Mike. Mike grew up with his father roofing, and he taught me as this young, high school girl just looking for a job to not have to go to school instead for part of the day. When I was 17, and I got into it, and I enjoyed doing the takeoffs, and I enjoyed going on the job sites and being in that world, and having him, he had been around it his whole life. That company was started in 1972, and I learned everything from him, and he would show me things that people just don't know. And it's so crucial, I think, to have that mentor, if you're going into the business, to have somebody that really knows what they're doing, because you learn it so much better and you learn it so much faster.
Yes, and to that point, don't just focus on one segment. Don't just think about the estimating. Just don't think about the books. Just don't think about the actual operations out there in the field. Learn it all. That's one of the things I love about commercial roofing so much is I can be in the office one day, I can be up there with the guys tearing off roof the next day. Just such
Right.
a vast, amount of variety we get to experience in it. If you're receptive to it and want to have that kind of, work
Right.
life, I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing AI, for instance, does is keeping you out of the office as much and out in the field or whatever it is you need to do to increase that production or increase your quality of life, whatever that is. So, that's where it's helping. But yeah, it's amazing. As far as where the industry is going with AI, what do you think it looks like in another 3 to 5 years?
Boy, that's such a loaded question. I don't know. Again, with AI just moving at an exponential pace right now, who knows
Straight
where that is
up.
going to, yeah, hockey stick. Um, I'm excited. I don't know where it's going to land.
Yeah.
And, but behind that, the labor force, obviously, hope we'll get more people that are,
Yeah.
inspired and want to do this kind of work again, because
Yep.
we've lost that over the years.
Yeah, we have, and there are a lot of people, but a lot of people don't realize that the process is a lot easier than it used to be. 15 years ago, it was a totally different process. The roofing industry was, and now it is. You can get a handful of guys out there and get a job done, and not be burnt and beat up, and not being able to hardly move that night. Or be covered in asphalt or whatever you want. So it has changed, and that's better for the workers too, and that provides income for them as well. And you're learning a trade, and that trade could lead to another trade, because your metal fabrication is a big trade as well, and that's really important on every roof system too.
Yeah, well, we're doing a ton of metal roofs
Yeah.
down here in Florida, our company included. Um, a lot of the state is going away from doing shingles if they
Mhm.
can, because insurance companies are giving them the pink slip after 12 years or even
Yeah.
less sometimes for having
Yeah.
a shingle roof, and saying,
Right.
we're not going to insure you unless you get a new roof. So
Hmm.
a lot are making that transition to metal, which is absolutely great. Love seeing it. The longevity is awesome. Um, but yeah, there's going to be some changes in the industry for sure.
Yeah.
What they all look like, we don't know, but I'm excited, Amy.
Yeah, I am too. I am too. Well, look, is there anything else you want to add to the podcast today, to tell the listeners out there?
Don't be afraid. If you get into this, learn and have fun.
Awesome. Well, we so appreciate you coming on.
My
We
pleasure.
really do.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Bye.